And hello.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Lisa. Welcome to Dark Ozarks.
Hey, Josh. Hey, everyone. It's Wednesday, and it's the
Yes,
Dark
it
Ozarks.
is. We've got, and welcome to the Dark Ozarks channel on YouTube. We've got some really fun stuff to go over, some very juicy, fun stuff, and they make some people mad. And really quickly, before we dive into that, I just started reading Born Fighting, How the Scots-Irish Shaped America by James Webb, which I picked up at Always Buying Books.
Another good one from Always Buying Books.
Yes, it is. I actually realized, I don't know if it shows or not, this is Jimmy the literary bear, the little literary hillbilly bear. So I'm just stacking all of my books in his lap and seeing which ones he likes best. And if we'll see if he and I agree by the end of the week. But it is a fantastic book and a great selection at Always Buying Books in Joplin.
Yes, so if you're in the area, get by. If not, check them out online at alwaysbuyingbooks.net and on Facebook, Always Buying Books, and you can actually order through either. So and have them sent to you if you're not local. So.
Which is great. And of course, a lot of people road trip through the Joplin area because of historic Route 66, and Always Buying Books is near that route. So it's it would make a fantastic stop if you're a tourist. When I was up there a couple of weeks ago, I pretended like I was a tourist, and we had a great time.
Yeah, we did.
So, and we have an event coming up in October of 2022.
Yes, we do. October Country, which is being sponsored by Always Buying Books and the VFW in Joplin, Post 534. We will be there October 15th for an all-day event covering a bunch of different topics that fall into the purview of Dark Ozarks. And come on out. You can go on the website at paranormalsciencelab.com or on the Dark Ozarks Facebook page and get your tickets. So
Really fun. I love the in-person events. I think we get to learn so much from the public, who is often essentially embedded experiential public, individuals who have a heart for the region, for the lore, and many of them come with very significant experiences, which they often share, and we're very grateful.
Yes, we are, and we're very grateful for everyone who shares stories with us, and it's what makes our job wonderful.
It really is. And that's really where, I mean, you and I think it's fair to say, you and I read a lot. We research a lot. We have a lot of great times doing that. But where the rubber really meets the road is when we get the chance to begin documentation in first person, and that's incredible.
It really is. And we learn a lot, and we have a good time, and we hope you do too.
Yes. And segueing into our topic, which is a juicy topic to say the least, black magic with some specific focuses on traditional and historic black magic, which directly includes Cherokee black magic. It's very easy, especially from a pop culture standpoint, to dismiss the concept of magic as a myth, as a figment. As a spoiler alert, you and I believe are both approaching this, that while oftentimes magic does not manifest in the way that, say, you were expecting it to, because you watched every episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which for the record is awesome, but not necessarily realistic. That said, I believe in the practice of magic, and I believe you do as well.
Yes, definitely. And that it has ramifications for people that they often don't realize.
That it does. And in some cases, I think that it's not uncommon for individuals to perhaps experience magic and not realize that they have. It
Yeah.
is also possible to experience life and then believe that somehow you've been cursed, when it's just the realities of living life.
That's true too.
And so I think there's the thing that I would encourage, if people are, interested, or if they're concerned, either one or maybe both, is to approach the realities or the concept of magic with some
Yes.
common sense and some understanding, to not be overly concerned, but also not to be closed-minded to the point that you think that it doesn't exist, because the reality is, certainly my opinion on that is, yes, it does.
Same.
Oh, that said, Cherokee black magic.
Yes, jump into something interesting.
Very, very interesting. Our primary source material for this, in case anybody is curious, is Alan Kilpatrick's "The Night Has a Naked Soul: Witchcraft and Sorcery Among the Western Cherokee." That's our source citation for tonight. And Kilpatrick is of Cherokee ancestry, and skilled anthropologist, and grew up in northeast Oklahoma.
Yes.
As well. So it's a very interesting read. I know at least one of our viewers purchased the book because we referenced it in an earlier episode. And just for the record, I was like, by the way, heads up, it's not the easiest thing to read.
No, it is a bit on the academic side.
It is. And I think understandably so, because I felt that I love the book. I felt that Kilpatrick really was working very hard to create a scholarly work that could be accepted effectively within the academic discussion. At the same time, and he places disclaimers in his book as well. I believe it was published in the 1970s. He places disclaimers to say, I'm not approaching this from a observer anthropological standpoint. I am approaching this from a personal standpoint, because this is work that my parents did in terms of research and documentation, and he includes a number of personal stories of encountering magic, in some cases encountering black magic,
Yes.
by his definitions in real life in Northwest Oklahoma. I find that really, really powerful.
I do too, and he gives a good context to things in relaying those experiences. I think that it often is lost.
I do too. Something that is important to note about this reference material is that the concept of witch is a bit different than the European concept of witch. As witch is defined here, which can be male or female, adult or child, in appearance, but the understanding is that this is a liminal space being, that this is, and as a liminal space being, it is not a shaman, not a granny woman, not someone who is specifically simply practicing magic. The witch that we're seeing described here isn't exactly even human.
Right. And I guess the best an analogy that really a really good analogy in the European tradition the closest I can really think of is in the voodoo tradition of walking the veil.
Interesting.
You know, having a practitioner that can basically walk in the veil, walk between the worlds, and in that sense lose their physicality because they often then are invisible, etc.
Yeah.
And so it becomes a, you know, sort of that in between ephemeral state.
And that that tends to conceptually track, because shape-shifting and black witchcraft is directly associated one with the other,
Right.
in
And
First Nation.
and
Here.
in the voodoo tradition, you know, veil walking isn't technically shape shifting; it's more of a camouflage.
Mhm.
And so, but it's in some ways has sort of the same effect.
True. Very, very true. Now, another thing that I found really fascinating about this is another classification of witchcraft punishment.
Mhm.
Now, we'll see if I can, you know, ruffle some people up here with this, but this is documentation in regards to, you know, traditionalist views that are, to me, is very interesting. It is very normal now at this point, and for understandable reasons, in you know, modern era and postmodern era, to look at, say, European, the European witchcraft panic and resulting um, trials and executions
Mhm.
as the barbarity that it is and the barbarity that it was. And so I'm not decrying that whatsoever. But there's also I think a misconception that, for example, everything in North America was fine until Columbus showed up.
Oh, good point. And yes, that's not the case. And we've come across this in at other angles in the Dark Ozarks, that there was a lot of contention between various native groups going back hundreds of years before that, maybe thousands. And so while Columbus certainly did not help the situation, he didn't invent it.
He did not invent it. And so witchcraft punishment in northwest or northeast, sorry, my dyscalculia is kicking in northeast Oklahoma, witches were regularly killed.
Mhm.
Sometimes they were nailed into graves. They
Mhm.
were shot. The Seneca tradition, it was interesting in that if a witch could be brought to confession and repentance, his power would be broken and he would be allowed to live. The Chickasaw, the Natchez, the Miami, and the Delaware all killed witches. The Creek Indians burned witches alive, and the Cherokee executed suspicious individuals they suspected. That's the word I'm looking for. Suspected of black witchcraft by knocking them in the head with a rock and throwing them into the river.
Well, we're almost to dunking. Sorry about that.
It does. It does. You know, this is purely socio-community conjecture. That's a socio-historical conjecture. But I now am imagining Scots-Irish immigrants making it to Appalachia, setting around a fire and finding commonality with the Cherokee on how to deal with witches.
It's entirely possible.
I have no idea if that happened, but I cannot help but note some interesting similarities. And something that is, to me, very interesting but also very chilling is the idea that those suspected of black witchcraft were not even considered human, therefore killing them would not be classified as murder.
That's true. That's true. And we should also say that that sort of viewpoint was not isolated just to the Cherokee or to this area, particularly when you get out west. Those kind of views, you know, are fairly common in dealing with, quote, Black witches. So, you know, that wasn't isolated.
No, it is fascinating. The conflict that is there, I think, is powerful. Something that perhaps is a you know, a closing point for our short here on YouTube about Black witchcraft is that it is very, to me anyway, it is very it's very personal. This is a practice that takes place almost on a one-on-one basis. It is not something that is broadcast or done wholesale, and oftentimes it appears to exist within an ambiguity in the of was that witchcraft? Was that an accident? Was that witchcraft? Was it a naturally occurring disease? Was that those types of things?
Well, and to be perfectly honest, if it's executed the way it's supposed to be executed, that ambiguity is supposed to be.
Yes. And that our essentially our postmodern secularism is a heck of a good way to hide it.
Yeah, I think that's well put. And we will have a longer format discussion in more depth that will be going up on YouTube probably tomorrow then.
Sounds good. Appreciate everybody. Like, share, subscribe, click the notification bell, all of the things that one does on social media.
Yes, and then we will see you next week.
Sounds great. Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks, Josh.